Sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
Hello, one and all, to my Kerbal Space Program video series. This is the Mission to the MUN continuation of last week's video, in which we went to minmus. This is a Apollo-styled landing system, as in there is a separate lander, for two reasons. One, because I can have and we're cross-fitting over to lander. Actually, more on topic. But the craft built before the lander is the Tug. Very simple, just a two-seater Russian-styled command module from making history, as well as some radial parachutes in the docking port. For this, the lander module. Now we can add the parachutes, add some batteries, as well as solar panels. Add a reaction wheel on top of it, because there's no RCS. I have not unlocked RCS yet. So we're going to need at least one SAS wheel to turn it around, because the Russian-style command modules don't actually have SAS wheels. So now that we've assembled the lander as well as the service module, we can build the rocket. Nothing too advanced. It is the Cheetah engine with a fairing, pushing the fairing. That's the upper stage. Then we have a mainsail engine. And I'm using Kerbal Engineer Redux, but it was wrong. So, in the actual flight, I will fine tune and tweak it so that it provides enough thrust to get off the pad. Oh, we can mount a quick relay because there's a relay on the. Okay. No more building. We're on the rocket. I didn't get to finish what I was saying, but it's really not that important because the relay actually broke off when the fairing was staged. So we can lift off the pad. The two solid rocket boosters, and the one mainsail engine. And we can speed that footage right up, because nobody really wants to watch this. It gets boring. So we just jettison those two solid boosters, and they smash into each other and are no more, as the powerful mainsail has a lot of fuel, powers us up. But since it's going so fast, it's now gone, and we're on the Cheetah stage. And we're going to time warp to apoapsis, and stage the fairings, and that's when I noticed that dish came off. So now that's done, we can slow it back down. And this was the first, problem of the many in this mission. We did not have enough fuel in that Cheetah stage to fully circularize. We are still going to return back to Kerbin on our current trajectory. So we're going to get Bob out of the command and service module into the lander module, and we're going to dock the two and use the service module's engine to power the rest of the spacecraft into a stable orbit. And there we go. And an advantage to this is while we did lose a bit of fuel, there's no recovery. There's no ability for recovery on that Cheetah booster, so it will just naturally return to Kerbin, or its orbit will decay from passing through the atmosphere, and it will eventually fall back down. So we're going to do just a tiny engine puff. I was hoping that the force from decoupling the docking node would push the two apart, but it didn't. And I was hesitant to use the engine because I didn't want to, blow away the lander with engine wash. But it wasn't too big of an issue, just a little bit of misalignment. And with the docking method that I use, which is the quote-unquote land lazy method, apparently, that's what it's called, you just have the auto SAS target both points, you have docking ports target each other on the automatic SAS, and then you just boost towards. And if you're just decently close, like you can physically see the spacecraft you're trying to dock to, you should be able to actually dock with it, even if the two spacecraft begin rotating. So you can see it lining up, and beautiful connection. Probably the smoothest dock I've ever actually done. We're going to quickly point prograde before getting Bob out of the lander module. Oh, no, I was wrong. We're going to transfer him now while we're turning prograde. And we're going to quickly separate the staging to accidentally not activate the retrograde thrusters. Or no, first we're going to use the engine to boost ourselves into stable orbit before we go crashing back down. Then we're just going to fix a bit of staging, and then we can, yeah, now that that's done, the staging has been adequately fixed, we can disable crossfeed first, just to make sure that the service module does not consume any of the lander's fuel, because I cut it. It was an extremely close shave, this mission. So I didn't really want to time warp that far, that fast, but I wanted to get over periapsis to make sure that we can get the most efficient path to the MUN, basically. So now that that's done, we're going to just adjust it a little bit. Although, because I wanted to save fuel, not doing a mid-course correction, because this mission was an extremely close shave, but I had to end up doing it anyway if I wanted the dock back to the service module not to be a nightmare. Which, the fuel I saved from not doing a course correction would have been negligible because of the extra fuel I would have had to spend to perform inclination changes and just generally mess around in orbit trying to dock back with the service module to return to Kerbin. Now here I wasn't actually sure which one of these spheres I was controlling from, so I had to double switch them because I thought I was controlling from the wrong sphere, but no, we were controlling from the right sphere. So since we are over at the maneuver node, we're going to just wait until the time to the burn is about half of the estimated burn time, because that's how you can do it the most efficiently, and it's probably the most accurate way to do a burn. Half before the node, half past the node. You can extend that antenna, because actually it helps to get to hop the signal. All the command pods have a built-in relay that can skip off of relay dishes. So this little dish here helps Bob stay in connection with the KSC because he's not a pilot. He is a scientist Kerbal, which means he can refresh science experiments as much as he wants. But if he is out of touch with the KSC, there is no way for him to create, and actually there's no way for him to delete maneuver nodes, which is only slightly annoying. I mean, it doesn't actually affect the mission that much if you're just eyeballing it, and it's not too hard to eyeball a direct ascent path when you have plenty of extra fuel, i.e. the minmus mission, testing it. Actually, no, it wasn't testing. It was a failed attempt. It ran out of electric charge. I forgot to put solar panels on it, and I could not turn it around by the time I ditched the engine stage, and it went in soft side up, which is probably one of the reasons once you unlock fairings you should switch to the it's one of the reasons you should switch to the Russian modules when you get fairings. One, because they're smaller, and two, because even though they have no built-in reaction wheels, they don't really need them for re-entry, which is the problem. So if you feel that you're forgetful, you should switch to them. And I think this is this isn't a hot take. This is literally just true. Spheres are probably the coolest shapes to put on a spacecraft. Debate me, but you're never gonna win. You're gonna change my mind. You're never gonna change my mind on that. Spheres are just the best shapes to build spacecraft with. Or no, I should say the coolest looking shapes. But when that's done, we can transfer Bob Kerman so that we can perform all the science twice. We're gonna be doing one biome hop. And even with only that single biome hop, we cut it extremely close in the remaining fuel margins. So we can undock that and switch over to Bob's landing vessel before I realized that in the VAB I accidentally assigned Bill to the mission. I don't know why it doesn't automatically assign Bob over Bill. It really should. Just quality of life thing. But we had to quickly change Bob's parachute out. Because while I did take away Bill's parachute when I had him in, that it did not go the same for Bob. That's why Jeb did not have a personal parachute. But now that that's done, we have everything necessary to perform the landing and all the science. We're going to extend those panels and point retrograde as you slow down, because that's what the retrograde vector is. When you burn pointing retrograde, you slow down. That should be pretty straightforward. Extend those landing legs and start doing the burn to the orbit. Now I want to try to land near enough to the crater where I would be in a separate biome, but close enough so that I could do a biome hop. I could do a biome hop without running out of fuel margins. And I actually time warped a bit too quickly there, so had to do a radial outburn so that I can cancel out all the vertical speed and focus on canceling out this horizontal speed, which yeah, the horizontal speed does not matter as much as the vertical speed would, because if we hit the ground before we're out of or before we slow down adequately in either vector, we will crash and burn in a horrible explosion. But you see, that didn't happen to Bob. This was done in one take, which is pretty good. Aside from the beginning outtake, where I had to quickly switch the rocket, quickly switch Bill out of the rocket for Bob, because Bill's an engineer, and not a scientist. So, unlike Bob, Bill can deploy, or no, in the new update in 1.11, Bill can place certain parts and manipulate certain parts while on EVA, as well as repair wheels and other such components. But it's kind of like a pilot where science experiments such as the Science Junior and Mystery Go, I think this is the only two. Yeah, no, they're the only two. They can only be run once because you need when you take the data out of them, you need a scientist Kerbal to actually restore to make them usable once more. If you don't, you'll just have dead weight, which isn't really a problem if you have multiple on your ship and plan to ditch them. But to save weight and complexity and technology I don't have, I just stuck with one and put Bob on it. And Bill wouldn't even be that useful. He would not have the constant full control benefit of a pilot. Really, these engineers are not very helpful in any mission, other than like a long-term mission or a mission where you have extra things packed to manipulate on EVA. Or, of course, if you need to move something. But I was, when I went to go switch Bill out for Bob, I did just make sure everything was fine with the rocket. So that flag fell over, and I was going to try to get a thumbnail shot with the flag, but it kept falling. So I thought of a better idea for the thumbnail shot. I'm sure if you clicked in this video, you saw the thumbnail. So that step, that one right there, that's the thumbnail shot. So now that we got that single step for the thumbnail, we're going to just plant the flag, which is completely necessary. We're not going to name it because it disappointed me and fell over. And I was going to see that little small tiny crater right there? That is a breaking ground surface feature, and those can normally be scanned with a scanning arm, but we don't have that. However, some of the smaller breaking ground features, like the MUN stone, can actually be picked up by a Kerbal. So I was going to see, and I found a thing on the surface that looked about the size of a MUN stone. But alas, it was just a terrain scatter, which, weirdly enough, was just levitating off the surface. And completely devoid of any sort of collisions. But that goes for all of the terrain scatters that come with the stock game. The solid ones only come with breaking ground. So we're going to just jetpack back to the lander. Climb back up to the hatch because we need to go get more science. Bored. I don't know. For some reason, you have to go higher up than I would expect on the ladder of the Russian command modules to get in. I don't know. Maybe that's just a quirk with the single seater one, but that's hardly relevant because we are doing a biome hop. So we're gonna aim for that crater because normally, giant craters, not the small craters that pepper the surface of the MUN, but the big craters and canyons are usually their own unique biome. So you could probably score a decent bit of science. Speaking of craters, if you're not looking at the big ones, you're just looking at the very, very small surface craters, the MUN is quite spongy, really. Kind of looks like a sponge with all the little holes and gaps and craters in it. As we are time warping and approaching, we can point retrograde to slow down using the engine, as I explained before. I feel that this doesn't need explaining. It should be fairly common knowledge that pointing retrograde and performing an engine burn will slow you down. But hey, most people come to Kerbal Space Program initially looking to land on the MUN, because why not? You initially come to Kerbal Space Program with the objective of landing on the MUN, because, it's one small step, just everything everyone and their grandma has ever done in Kerbal Space Program. So, when you go to YouTube, you will find a lot of videos of Kerbal Space Program. Newer players that want to land on the MUN will generally find a lot, or will generally look for a lot of KSP MUN videos. So, some of the newer players out there may not know that, about how using each vector affects your speed and path. But that's really not relevant. We can just do some quick science. Observe the goo. Do a material study, as well as log the pressure and get a crew report. And, looking at it, I could have probably saved myself a lot of stress by using that descent stage to get a little bit of extra kick off the surface of the MUN. But there's two reasons I didn't do that. One, that kind of undermines the point of the ascent stage. Two, I kind of wanted to leave, a bit of a landmark here that wasn't a fallen flag, i.e., the lander's base and legs, kind of like how the Apollo missions did. Aside from the flag and their experiments, they also left behind a landmark of their landing leg stages. So then all the science is done. I was looking around to see if I can get one of those breaking ground surface features I mentioned before, and that little stone, that is definitely one. The way you can tell the difference between a terrain scatter and a breaking ground surface feature is two ways. Usually, the first way you can find it is if you're very close up, you can. The terrain scatters are completely devoid of any colliders, so you can just pass through them. Breaking ground features are solid, and also breaking ground features like the Munstone are they're in a lot higher detail than the terrain scatters. But now that we got that bit more science, we can re-embark this lander. Since we're going to leave behind the landing leg stage, I wanted to make definite sure that I took every piece of science out of it, because it's gonna be stuck here with all the experiments. I just decided to dump the experiments. It wasn't worth keeping every last one that I possibly had a clone, so it wasn't really that big of a problem. But I was just here to check if I had all of them. And that looks like I had them all. So we're gonna shut down this Terrier engine used for the landing stage. We're going to deploy these solar panels up here, and we're gonna set the command and service module as a target, and quickly do a very ungraceful and risky separation off of the landing base. Now, I'm not very good with the directions, like the compass directions of the nav ball. Only thing I really know is that the orange line that I was initially pointing toward, that is polar. You can see it now. The orange line that says north. I can't really see any other things. I don't see like northwest, south, and east. Maybe there's a mod that'll tell me that. Just simplified nav ball, something. Just let me know if the comments if there's something like that. But other than that, I am not very smart when it comes to. Well, I can't really find the degree numbers in time, like heat of the moment when I'm ascending. So usually I will just make a quick loop, not loop loop, but I'll make like a quick, like donuts when you drive in a circle with a car. I'll make like a quick that to see what direction is which and how it'll affect my orbit. Half the time I'll actually just not even use the non-map screen, and I will just I won't use the normal view. I'll just use the map screen and rely on that, because it's probably going to be a lot more accurate than just eyeballing it. Speaking of the map screen, we are in a stable orbit, and I'm going to set up an encounter to dock back with the command and service module, because we need it to get home. For one, this thing does not have enough delta V to leave the MUN's sphere of influence, let alone deorbit Kerbin, but also to save weight, I removed all of the ablator. And Bob does not have his parachute, so there is physically no way to bring this ship back to Kerbin without the aid of the command and service module. Which, spoiler alert, this little ascent stage right here, it's just going to be deorbited and smashed into the surface of the MUN. I did say I was a bit low on margins, but we had just barely enough to be good space stewards, smash this piece of debris into the ground, as well as safely return. There was no debris left in orbit, actually, although that Cheetah stage will probably stay up there for a little while, not indefinitely, like it would if it was in a stable orbit, but it will eventually just decay because it's still passing through the atmosphere. Kerbin's atmosphere ends at 70 kilometers, so anything below that, you will eventually start to descend back. It's an aero brake, basically. It's like an aero brake. Exactly what it is. Just unintentionally aero braking. So you will fall out of the sky. Now, this is the part where I realized, I can't use this engine anymore. I have nowhere near enough margins. 20 meters per second of delta V would definitely not work. And while I could have actually EVA'd Bob, now in hindsight, I could have definitely EVA'd Bob out to jetpack his way to the command and service module. I would have 9 times out of 10 in that situation, I would have forgotten to actually take the science data out of it, not the modules. Gonna quickly set that as a target and use the command and service module's engine to slow down relative to the ascent stage. The Terrier engine, it's really amazing. Of course, it's nowhere near as efficient for interplanet, and it's just not as good for interplanetary missions. But anything staying within one planetary system, it's it's a darn good engine. Decent thrust, 60 kilonewtons. It's the same as the nuclear engine. However, it's a lot lighter. So while you don't get as much delta V saved from the efficiency of the engine, you have delta V saved due to weight, which in some cases will help you a lot. It also has a higher TWR due to the lower weight. Disadvantage: it runs on liquid fuel and oxidizer, which is why, unless you're doing some sort of challenge, micro-scale interplanetary mission, it won't do you much good for anything other than a landing stage or an ascent stage. You really need a nuclear engine to start going interplanetary. And sometimes, if you have a really, really small ship or an SSTO, you will need the utility of a nuclear engine or 2, or 3 or 4, or even 8 one of my SSTOs had. Never posted it. I actually haven't made an SSTO video, but that's maybe that's an adventure for when I'm done with the save file, when I have all of the science. Now, I'm going to EVA Bob here, because, so I can grab the science data out of the capsule, because unlike normally in the sandbox mode where I would just transform across and not worry about the data I got, I actually do need to worry about it, because this is science mode, don't have a full tech tree. Also, I thought I'll snag a couple extra points of science by doing that EVA science kit. As far as I know, it's unlimited, but I might be wrong. There might be a certain number of charges, and I've just never reached that number. So I noticed that the periapsis was worryingly low, but that actually sort of worked out for me, because I was able to easily get a quick deorbit without spending too much of my very, very limited fuel margin. And we're just going to boost back into orbit, because I did want to utilize the Oberth effect to get a more efficient ascent off the MUN. Because efficiency is key right here. 800 meters per second, while it's more than enough to return to Kerbin, it did have me a little bit worried, because I'm not that good. I'm not very exact, unlike someone like Bradley Wistons, who is extremely exact, minimalist missions. I'm not that good. Spoiler alert, I'm not good at all. I would consider myself alright, but I'm not quote-unquote good at this video game. So I was really trying to save fuel in every way I can. And unlike in the minmus video, actually we got a landing on the light side. And some people might think, but wouldn't the planet turn so you would actually land on the dark side? No, actually, it wouldn't. I thought that would happen too, but it didn't because I forgot completely how orbit works and how planets spinning day and night works. But basically, since it's on the light side, no matter what side of the planet that's on, or what side of the sphere that's on, it'll always be light because the sun is shining towards that sector of the sphere. So if the sphere rotates, the sun will still be there, if you know what I mean. Just day and night side of Kerbin, the part with light will always have light on it. It's just a different part that has light due to the way the planet spins. So right here, 410 meters per second. Actually, not as much as a close shave as I thought it was, but it was very close in the docking. I was very afraid to run out of fuel. Every possible maneuver to save fuel was taken. And, just for the fireworks show, I decoupled that at the last possible minute, and we can watch the fireworks on re-entry. Well, not as violent as I anticipated. The service module, I think at least a small, very heat-resistant and shielded fragment managed to crash back down to Kerbin, but it did not survive. It did not have parachutes, nor did it have the necessary probe core to pull those chutes. It also had zero thermal protection, so yeah, it was probably shielded as the fuel tanks and pieces of the service module ablated away. Kind of like how a real heat shield works, except a lot more violent and probably a lot more expensive because it's not actually meant to be heat resistant. It's literally just fragments and pieces of trash that are breaking away slow at a slow enough rate for it to survive. But that is way past. We are back to Kerbin. Unlocking some science modules is the next step to increase the science draw from next mission, which is going to be Duna. But you might be wondering yourself, but you don't have the nuclear engine. How are you supposed to get Kerbals to Duna? You said it yourself. You can't do it without it. But we're gonna do something special next video. But until then, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe. Comment if you're feeling like I need feedback. I don't know what to say.